What is up, everyone? Crunchy Frog here, and today we are going to be doing something a little bit different, a little less scripted, a little more review-like. I know this is a break from the normal Call of Duty discussions and everything, and don't worry, those will be back next week, but I'm kind of in a lull period for Call of Duty, so Pokemon has completely taken over my life, and so today I wanted to just kind of get my thoughts out on all of the brand new Pokemon introduced in Generation 9 with the Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet games. So basically, I'm just going to do a run-through of all of the new Pokemon that were introduced, so not the entire regional dex that includes Pokemon from previous generations, only the brand new ones, and I'm mostly going to go off of design or general feel or opinion on the Pokemon. Not too likely am I going to break them down in a strictly competitive sense, oh, this one has super high stats, or this one's really good for raids, or anything like that, unless it stood out to me as I used or caught the Pokemon. So this isn't a full breakdown on what Pokemon you should use for raids or anything super statistical or technical or anything like that. That may come in a separate video. Today, just wanted to give you my thoughts and opinions. I will be grading on a scale from S+, being the tip-top best Pokemon that they could possibly make, the whole way down to F-, being absolutely just terrible and something that I do not like whatsoever. So without further ado, remember, as always, if you like this kind of content, please click that like button and drop a comment, as it greatly helps the success of this channel. And if you like videos like this and you want to see more in the future, remember to click that subscribe button and stick around for future videos. So with that all out of the way, let's just get started. So we'll start right at the beginning here with Sprigatito. Now, Sprigatito is the grass starter, the first evolution for this generation, and honestly, I don't hate it. It is just kind of a grass cat with a couple flourishes here and there. I do like the green color scheme, and of course its cute little feet. Overall, I'm not incredibly impressed with the design, but I don't hate it either. I'm gonna have to give this one a solid B+. Now, moving on to its evolution, Florigato. I do like the kind of evolution. It's a great second evolution for Pokemon. It's definitely elaborates on the beginning evolution, amps it up just a little bit without going too crazy. I do particularly like them adding a little more dark colors as it slowly transitions into a dark type. But again, it is a bipedal cat, so by definition, everyone kind of dislikes it a little bit since they're going right back down the path of bipedal human-like starters. But nonetheless, I think it's an overall pretty good design. I'm going to have to give this one a B+ as well. Now moving on to the final evolution of the chain, Meowscarada. I actually really enjoyed the design for this. It's kind of human-like, so I do have to take some points off for it, but it's not as egregious as some of the starters in previous generations. Overall, I do like the kind of court jester, carnival, magician kind of vibe to it, and I really love the color scheme. I do feel, once again, it is a little too human-like and a little fur-baity, but overall, I still enjoyed it, and the grass dark typing is pretty cool. And I really like the fact that just to get this out of the way, I really like the fact that all of these starters have their own special move, their own signature move, so that's pretty cool. Not tied directly to Meowscarada, all of them have one, but just wanted to throw that in there. Overall, I give Meowscarada an A-. I actually gotta say I kind of like it. Next up, we have the starter that I chose with Fuecoco. Now, Fuecoco to me really stood out as something unique whenever we saw the original teaser trailer back probably a year ago now at this point. I love the fact that he's a little ghost pepper crocodile with a couple dragon or dinosaur elements to him as well. Overall, he looks fun and cute and definitely what a starter should be for the franchise. He's unmistakably an animal with mystical powers. Love that. Definitely going to have to give him an A+. He was very close to becoming S tier for me. I don't really understand the little Kraft Singles cheese slice on his stomach, but overall I really love the design and it made me choose him as my starter. Now, Crocalor, on the other hand, it took quite a dive. It kind of looks really dorky and kind of spacey now. It doesn't look like it has a whole lot going on behind its eyes, and what used to look like a fun, energetic Pokemon just kind of looks weird now. I do like the idea of the fire egg, kind of forming a sombrero for him, and he kind of looks like he has a little suit going on, but overall I don't like the body shape. I don't like the overall aesthetic very much. It's a huge downgrade from Fuecoco, and honestly, I'm going to have to give this one a C minus. A big fall from grace from the beginning. And next up, we have a staple of my team, Skeledirge. Now, to begin, I love the Fire Ghost typing. It is kind of redundant because Scarlet is also a great Fire Ghost Pokemon, so, a little bit of redundancy on my team, but I absolutely loved Skeledirge. Now, the design, I definitely would have done it differently. The idea of like a ghost crocodile sort of thing that spews fire, and the whole music element to him in theory sounds amazing. Unfortunately, it just doesn't quite work as well as I'd wished it would. Too many angles, a little weird edges and shapes there, so ultimately I'm gonna have to give this one a B minus. Next up, we have Quaxley, and honestly, this is my least favorite of the starter evolution lines, so just know these are not going to be good ratings. I think Quaxley himself is pretty cool, but overall he kind of just looks like a cartoon duck, a little less like a Pokemon, and I really don't like his hair bubble thing. I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to have to go with a D rating overall. Now, Quaxwell, I think, is a half-decent middle evolution for this line. Not something that I'm a huge fan of, but it's not bad given what it started out as. Overall, again, just kind of odd elements. It's kind of bipedal, starting to look more like a human, unfortunately, which is a trapping that starters have been getting into way too often lately. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to give it a C minus. So slightly better than Quaxley, but not much. And finally, unfortunately, we have Quackaball. Now, I love the idea of a water fighting type. I love his signature move. I love the fact that it speeds him up. Competitively, again, if we were going off of that, I wouldn't hate him as a Pokemon as a whole. But the design, I really don't like. He's way too human, and his mannerisms kind of freak me out. And it's very weird. I get what they were going for, but again, not one of my favorites at all. I'm going to have to go with my first F tier rating for this. Next up, we have everybody's favorite pig, Lechonk. So just for the name itself, I feel like I should give this above an S tier. Just what a great memey name. But overall, the Pokemon design, not too bad. It's your typical first route, normal type, actual animal Pokemon. And I gotta say, it looks pretty good. I love the fact that shiny is pink like a pig. Obviously, his normal type, normal coloring is the color of pigs as well, but you get what I mean. Overall, going to have to give him a solid B+ rating. I don't necessarily dislike anything about him, but he doesn't stand out too much aside from his name in general. Now, Oinkologne, I don't know what to feel about it. I don't love it. I don't hate it. I understand kind of where they had to go with it. The male and female variants is a very cool, I love when they have the sexual dimorphism in Pokemon, so that's pretty cool. Overall, very middle of the road. I got to go with C on this one because, again, I don't love it. I don't hate it. It's just the first route normal type. It's not meant to be too remarkable. Next up, we have Tarantula. I'm not crazy about some of the design elements. I don't love his eyes very much, but I do kind of love the idea of it, and as always, I do love the beginning bugs, especially when they're a little bit variated from the typical caterpillar to butterfly evolution we've seen in a lot of generations. Nothing too crazy. I do love his shiny form that has like a red ball of yarn, kind of Spider-Man-esque colors. Overall, I'm just going to have to give him a C+. Now, Spidops, I actually think is pretty cool. I know a lot of people hate him, but I kind of like the design. And overall, if he was just a little bit bigger, like if he was maybe a foot taller and just, a little more of an imposing figure, obviously with slightly better stats, I think I'd really enjoy him, actually. The color palette, I'm not crazy about. The shiny helps with that a little bit. Overall, I'm going to have to go with a B- for him. Now, next up, we have Nimble, and I love Nimble. It's such a useless little cricket. It always gets scared of you and runs away, but I just love its design. Its eyes are a little weird and don't really look like an actual animal, but then again, bugs are always kind of weird. So overall, I'm going to have to give Nimble an A rating. He's a great little guy, and while I didn't use him during my playthrough, I definitely could see myself, starting out with one in future playthroughs. Next up, we have his evolution, Low Kicks. Now, Low Kicks to me looks absolutely awesome. I love the idea. I love the scissor kick, little legs he has on his back. I wish his stats were better because honestly, I would have one on my team 100%. I'm actually going to have to give this one an A+ rating. I think Low Kicks is super cool. His shiny being kind of green and more cricket type colors is just awesome. Again, an A+. Next up, we have Palmy, which is this generation's Pikachu clone. So you already know kind of what to expect. Nothing too crazy. It's going to be a cute little electric type rodent. And he just kind of fills that void pretty well. I like his hands, his tiny little hands. Overall, again, nothing crazy. Don't love it, dislike it. I'm going to give it a C+. Next up, we have his evolution, which is really just a taller version of him with Palmo. Now, I love that he starts to get the electric sacks in his hands. That's a really cool idea. The electric fighting type is also cool off the bat. That helps you out with a lot of early game encounters. Again, he's not too crazy. I don't think it's enough of an evolution visually from his counterpart, Palmy, but overall, decently solid Pokemon. I'm probably just going to go with C+ again. Now, the final evolution is pretty cool. Again, it just kind of looks like the other two, but with a more pronounced head and a little more hair. But again, I do love the fact that his electric sacks are actually in his hands this time, the electric fighting type. I'll go B- on this just to say that he is better than the previous two. But again, nothing too crazy, not like one of my favorites, but I also don't dislike anything about them either. Now, next up, we have Tandemaus, which is one of those weird Pokemon where it's just one thing but multiples of that thing, and somehow they're one creature. I'm really not sure how it works, but essentially just two mice that kind of really don't look like Pokemon. They just look like those little mouse dolls that you see in stores that, your crazy aunt probably has on her shelf somewhere. Overall, not too happy with them. I'm going to give this a D-. Next up, we have the evolution, which is a really cool evolution method. So as much as I don't like the design of this, I just got to say the Pokemon idea itself is super cool, right? It can either evolve into a family of 3 or a family of 4, depending on an encryption value. Super rare to get a family of 3 as opposed to a family of 4. And I actually really like its evolution mechanic, the fact that it just randomly evolves after level 25 or age 25, like most humans do. They settle down and have a family around that age. So I really enjoy the look of it, or the concept behind it, rather. It's just the idea of just 4 little mice as a single Pokemon just doesn't grab me. I do love the fact that it has Population Bomb, which is a really cool move, but again, not one of my favorites. I'll give it a D+, since it is better than Tandemaus, and I love its evolution method, but still one of my least favorite Pokemon. And now we move on to Fido, which is one of everyone's favorite Pokemon in the beginning trailers. Everyone was going crazy over the little doughy puppy dog. And again, just a great idea, a great design, everything like that. I think they did a great job with this. Not one of my favorite Pokemon. I didn't have it on my team by any means, but definitely love the design and what they were going for there. I'm going to give this an A-. Now on to his evolution, Darkspun. I think it's just a perfect evolution, right? Now the buns are all cooked. It now looks a little more like a dog, obviously a dachshund, and just overall pretty cool design. Again, not crazy about it to use it or anything, but I definitely think it's a cool Pokemon. I'm going to give this one an A- as well. Next up, we have Smoliv, which is one of my favorite Pokemon from the reveal trailers. And he's a really cool little olive. That's really all you need to know. And again, the name, they knocked it out of the park. Kind of memey with the small spelled S-M-O-L. I love him. He's cool. He's kind of creepy. Absolutely awesome. A+ for Smoliv. I was so close to giving him S tier, honestly. The next evolution, Dolliv, again, just a perfect kind of progression there. I think he's really cool looking. Just not much to say other than that. Just a great, evolutionary step from Smoliv. I'm going to go with A. And finally, we have Arboliva, or Arboliva, depending on how you pronounce it. I think it's interesting. I definitely don't like it as much as I thought I would when I saw Smoliv. But I am glad that Smoliv got a 3-stage or 2-stage evolution, rather, and that he does have a third form. Overall, not crazy about the design, but I don't hate it either. And his Seed Sower ability is kind of neat as well. Overall, I'm going to have to give this one a B rating. Next up, we have Squawkabilly. Obviously, there is 4 colors to him. just not a huge fan. Again, I don't like single stage Pokemon. I've said that in my Pokemon Violet review, and this is just your run-of-the-mill kind of boring parrot-looking bird with a 1950s rockabilly haircut and a little vest jacket thing. Overall, no, I just don't enjoy it. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to give this my first F rating. Next up, we have one of my personal favorites. We have Knackley. Now, Knackley himself is just a little rock with a little salt crystals growing out of him. Nothing too special. Your perfect first rock Pokemon like Geodude and Roggenrola and other little guys like him earlier on in the series. Overall, just very cool. I love the purifying salt ability, stuff like that. I'm going to have to give him an A+ rating. Now, for my first S tier, we're going to go with Knacklestack. Now, somebody like me who is a huge sucker for Minecraft have put well over 1,000 hours into that game over the years. Just an absolute fiend for Minecraft here, and he just scratched all the right itches. I know a lot of people were complaining that he was a blocky Minecraft Pokemon. I love it. I love his sound, his cry rather, this way it sounds like rocks rubbing together. I love his move with Salt Cure and everything like that. I just think it's a great Pokemon, and it's a way to incorporate other pop culture references while also remaining true to the series. It still looks like a Pokemon, everything like that, while also looking like a Minecraft mob. So absolutely my first S tier. And his older brother Garganical, however you want to pronounce it, absolutely love him as well. S tier. He was on my team the entire playthrough up until recently. I love the fact that it's kind of like an iron golem from Minecraft as well now, on top of being a huge salt crystal. It kind of looks like a quarry as well, with the different layers of earth and the stacked marble tops on top of them. I just think it works so well. And something that I didn't mention with the last two, but I love the names in this series of evolution. NaCl obviously being table salt, sodium chloride. The fact that they really cleverly implemented that in all three of their names, I love it. And I mentioned again in my review that some of the names in this generation were great. This is another one, absolute S tier from me. So on to everyone's favorite little fire guy, Charcadet. Now he looks so cool. I hate the fact that his shiny is so lame, but Charcadet himself is such a cool little guy, and the evolution line itself being, kind of a version exclusive that has to evolve with a very special piece of armor that you get from grinding certain materials. I love the idea, and I wish that they have more in the future, and to make, grinding out Pokemon or using the Let's Go feature more often to get armor pieces or something to evolve or power up a Pokemon. I hope they do that a lot going forward. I really like this line. Charcadet himself isn't anything too special, but I am going to give him an A+. Next up we have Armarouge, which is his Pokemon Scarlet evolution. Basically, you can only get him in Scarlet, wherein you trade an old lady for basically a piece of armor that evolves him into Armarouge. I enjoy it. I think it is a great evolution of Charcadet. It looks exactly like an evolution of Charcadet probably should. Not too crazy with it. It kind of looks a little too much like Mega Man, but overall I still really enjoy it. I did get one from my girlfriend from her Scarlet version, so I do have one on my Pokemon Violet, and I do intend on using it. Overall, again, an A rating. Not my favorite by any means, but I do really enjoy it. Next up, we have actually my favorite Pokemon possibly of all time, if not top 3, Ceruledge. Ceruledge is, like I said, honestly, the moment I saw this in a pre-release, and especially whenever I started using him in-game, he easily became my favorite Pokemon, or at least top 3 Pokemon of all time. S+ all the way. I love his little flame swords. I love his edgy look. The fact that he still does resemble a Pokemon while being a little more, armory and human-like, warrior-like. I personally named mine Zero after the assassin, the sword assassin from the Borderlands series. I just think he looks really, really cool, and I'm actually in the works trying to get some art to maybe make him a little mascot for this page, just because honest to God, one of my favorite Pokemon of all time. His shiny form, again, the shiny form for all these is kind of dumb that their eyes just changed color. I would have edited a lot more, but overall, S+ all the way. I can't say highly enough of Scarlet. Just to note as well, his signature move, Bitter Blade, I love it. I love it. An 80 power move on an already high normal attack Pokemon that also heals you afterwards. Just great move overall. Great Pokemon. Can't say highly enough. I could probably go on for an entire video about all the things I love about Scarlet. Next up, we have Tadbulb, and Tadbulb is just a cool little tadpole guy that looks like a light bulb. Nothing too crazy going on with his design, but overall, I like him. He's a cool little dude. We'll give him a B plus rating. Now, what he evolves into, I really wanted to like Belly Bolt, and I know a lot of people do because he's just a fun, squishy little guy. He's a little avocado. I really do want to love him. Honestly, guys, I do. I don't like his actual face. I know the little mounds on the sides that look like eyes are actually just, membranes. They're not actual eyes, and people have likened that to the basilisk from Dark Souls and everything, but I want to love him. I can't. I don't hate him either, but just overall a C rating because he kind of disappointed me, right? An electric frog, that would be right down my alley, obviously, and I can't. Sorry, guys. Like I said, C rating. Next up, we have Wattrel, which is this generation's just kind of, regional bird. And this time, he is an electric flying little petrel, I think they're called, birds. Nothing too crazy. Again, it's just the, regional bird. I wish he had a third evolution in this line, but overall, not too bad. I'm going to give him a B rating. Kilowattrel, I actually like Kilowattrel's design a lot better. I think he's pretty cool, and honestly, I think in the future, going forward, I will love to have a Kilowattrel on my team. I like assembling regional bird teams just because every region has one, and I could definitely see him making some of my teams in the future, so we'll give him a B+. Next up, we have Maschiff, which is the second of the two dog types that they gave us this generation. And he's pretty cool. He's a pure dark type. I love his little, mischievous design and the fact that they even say in the Pokedex that he tries to look hard, but everyone doesn't take him seriously because he just kind of looks cuter than he does angry. Kind of like a junkyard dog looking mutt Pokemon, so to speak. I really like the idea, and the design is executed pretty well. I'll go with an A-. And then that brings us to Mabastiff or Mabastiff, depending on how you pronounce it. And he's kind of a cool gangster-like Pokemon. I think is the path they were going for there, like an old mobster, old in age and everything like that. Again, the dark type works really well as a counterpoint to the Darkspun line. And his point in the story, no spoilers or anything, but his huge contribution to the overarching story in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet helps out a lot. Probably going to give him the same rating as Maschiff, an A-. Next up, we have Shroodle, and I gotta say, I'm not a fan. I get kind of where they were going with him. I just don't like the design whatsoever. It looks weird. It looks, I don't know. There's something about it just doesn't sit right with me. I love the poison normal typing. That's super cool. But unfortunately, I'm going to have to give Shroodle a D- on this one. And he evolves into Grafaiai, which was revealed ahead of time, one of their marquee reveals ahead of launch. And I think he's pretty cool overall. There's a little too much going on. And again, some of the design elements I'm not a huge fan of. Definitely like him a lot more than Shroodle, but still not one of my favorite Pokemon. I wish he had a little better stats. I wish he maybe had a third evolution. Again, just kind of unremarkable. Honestly, I'm going to have to go with a D+ for him. Next up, we have Bramblin. I love the fact we finally got a tumbleweed Pokemon. That is so cool. A grass and ghost. I know we have a couple grass ghosts before, but overall, I really enjoy his look. He's a pretty cool little guy, and his evolution method is super cool. I'll have to go with a B-. His evolution is just kind of more of the same. He's just a bigger, more designed version of his pre-evolution. Nothing too crazy. Again, I do love, again, the evolution method, having to walk around with him in order to evolve, but nothing too crazy. We're going to go with B- again. Toad's cool. I gotta say how much I love the convergent evolutions that they've been trying to throw into games nowadays. Super cool, and I think it's a way to recycle old Pokemon without making it feel old and recycled and just regurgitated content. So I really enjoyed this guy. They turned him from a little jellyfish into a little walking mushroom Pokemon. I love the way he runs. I love his shiny. Honestly, Toadstool is an A+ from me. In his evolution, again, just such a cool take on Tentacruel. Basically, if someone said, well, what if I take this design and just convert it to being on land, right? Super cool. I think his shiny looks awesome as well. I love the fact that he's kind of a menacing walking, mushroom. Again, I'm gonna have to go A+. One of my favorite Pokemon. I just wish they had a little higher stats so I could use them more, but super cool Pokemon. Next up, we have Cloth, who really just kind of disappointed me. I expected to have maybe one or two evolutions, but it was just kind of just him. And the rosy cheeks are really weird. I kind of like the rest of his design, and his shiny is super cool, but I gotta say, I know this is gonna, hurt a lot of people's feelings because he is kind of a neat little dude, but super underwhelming and did not meet my expectations. I'm gonna have to go with a D rating here. And kind of the same goes for our next entry, Capsicid. I feel like it could have been super cool, and I guess as a first evolution, he fits the bill pretty well. So I will have to say that he is a C rank for me, kind of not great, not bad, but I do like the fact that it's a little pepper, he has the little baby bonnet on. Overall, there's a lot of cool design choices here, but just not one of my favorites, very middle of the road. And his evolution, Scovillain, I think they could have gone so far with this line, and that kind of goes back to what I said about Cloth. I just think there's a lot of wasted potential here, a lot of stuff that we didn't get, and overall, just not my favorite Pokemon of all time. So I just, for all of the missed potential and missed possible third evolution and everything like that, I'm going to have to give this one a C-. I still like the idea of the hot pepper and normal pepper, kind of the two-headed evil pepper thing there, and the grass and fire type just had to happen eventually with a spicy pepper Pokemon. So I'm super glad that they did all that, and that's saving it from like a D or an F tier. But again, just so much wasted potential. I think they could have gone really far with this idea. Next up, we have Rellor, which again, another one we've just been kind of expecting to have eventually, was a dung beetle. It's pretty cool, nothing too special, literally just looks like a beetle that's rolling around instead of a turd. He's just rolling around some dirt with some sprinkles in it, ? But overall, again, nothing too special, probably C- for Rellor as well. And next up, we have Rabska, which is his evolution. Now, I think Rabska is actually really cool, and the idea that the Pokemon is actually the ball, and he's kind of psychic, and, it floats around him all the time, and the overall design of the Scarab himself, I think it's really done well. They took a very unremarkable Pokemon and made him really unique and really cool, and something that, stands out to you. So honestly, I'm going to have to give Rabsa a B+. Not, again, something crazy that I'm rushing to put on my team, but I think it's really cool. And again, the evolution method of walking around with him, I think, is super awesome. Next up, we have Flittle, and I'm not crazy about Flittle. The color choices are really weird. The look of it is really odd. It's just kind of just so many design choices all thrown into one. I don't hate it, but I don't love it either. I'm going to have to go with a D+ rating. Next up, we have his evolution, Espathra. And again, just so many odd design choices. It just looks almost fake. I don't love it. I don't hate it. I actually enjoy its shiny color a lot more. Kind of brings it a little closer back down to earth and kind of homogenizes some of its design choices, so that helps out. Again, honestly, with this one, I'll probably have to give it a C- rating. Next up, we have one of my favorite lines here, and that's Tinkatink. Tinkatink is just a little baby fairy holding on to a little, rattler. I think the design is super cool, and you could already tell from the very first evolution that it was going to go on to be something super cool. So Tinkatink, nothing remarkable in and of itself, so I'm going to have to give it a B rating, but just know that it's only going up from here. Tinkatuff is a great evolution, obviously, of Tinkatink. It gets a little bigger hammer. It itself is now maybe a preteen or a teenager, and it looks super cool. I love the fairy steel typing. Again, the fact that now it has an actual hammer. Pretty cool stuff. I'm going to have to go with a B+. And next up, we have Tinkaton, which was on my team for a long time. Named her Hammer Time. I think the idea that it knocks Corviknights out of the sky with pebbles and stuff, with boulders, it says, and it's just carrying around this hammer that's like 3 times the size of it. And it's just such a cool Pokemon. Its move Gigaton Hammer is absolutely busted. I love it. Overall, just such a cool Pokemon and a really memorable one, which is really key. For all the forgettable, lame, generic Pokemon they've made over the years, having something super memorable and cool, I love it so much. I'm going to have to give Tinkaton an S rating, actually. So my second S rating of the series here. Next up, we have Wiglet, which again is a convergent evolution of Diglett. Nothing much to say here. It's just kind of a weird worm-looking thing. It was exactly what I would picture if a Diglett was underwater. Don't love it, don't hate it. Easy, just unremarkable C rating. And the same goes for its evolution Wugtrio. Again, it's just a Dugtrio, but underwater. I do love its bright pink color and bright blue color for its shiny. So that boosts it up a little bit. I'll give it a C+. Next up, again, I'm going to have to go with a D- for Bombardier. Just so much wasted potential. We could have had a Prevo. We could have had a second evolution. They could have just done a lot more from this. Ultimately, it's just kind of a bird. Kind of an anatomically correct bird, other than its weird, like, stork apron thing. And it launches rocks with it. Not one of my favorites at all. I'm going to have to give this one a D-. Just super uncreative, and I feel like they could have done a lot more with the concept and with the evolution line. And again, you guys know how I feel about single-stage evolution Pokemon. Next up, we have Finizen. I love that we finally got a dolphin Pokemon. I love his little ring on his tail. Overall, the design looks super cool. I think they could have done a little bit more to make it Pokemon-ified, if that's a word. So nothing too great. I'll have to go with the C+ for Finizen. Now, his evolution Palafin, I hate the evolution method of having to level it up while you're playing with another player. I get they had to do that because this is the first fully co-op Pokemon game and whatever, but I'm just not a huge fan of it. And his gimmick is cool and interesting, so I have to give it some points there. I just don't like the fact that his evolution looks almost identical to its Prevo before it evolves. And even when it evolves, it looks weird. I'm sorry, it doesn't even look like a Pokemon. It's just so weird, and they could have done so much better, I think, with a superhero dolphin. I'm sorry, I gotta give Palafin an F. I hate to say that because I really want to love it, and I know its hero form is obscenely powerful and busted, but there's a lot of cool ideas here. It just falls super flat in my opinion, and we'll have to give it again an F tier. Now next up is going to divide a lot of people. A lot of people hate it, but Varoom is our first engine Pokemon, right? We've talked about it for a while. Car Pokemon, engine Pokemon. It had to happen eventually. And we get a little single-cylinder bike engine in Varoom. I love the fact that he just kind of surrounds himself with the coal to kind of power himself. The fact that it's steel and poison type, alluding to the gas that it emits and everything like that. Some great design choices overall. I don't think it was executed flawlessly. It's not one of my favorite Pokemon, but I have to give him props, obviously, as a huge car guy myself. I love having that in there. And so we're going to have to give him just a B rating. Now, his evolution, on the other hand, which is a full multi-cylinder, as they call it, engine, and being like kind of a muscle car inspired, obviously I have to love it. Now, its design does not quite do everything for me. I'm not a massive fan of it, but I do think it's cool that they kind of turned that into the floats for all of the team star bases and everything, kind of turned it into a vehicle of sorts, as we were all kind of concerned pre-release of what those vehicles were they Pokemon, whatever, and again, I think there's some wasted potential here, but overall, you know me, I gotta love it. I'm gonna give this one an A- for Varoom. Next up, we have Cyclizar, which is just a bike lizard. I want to love it. I really do, but I don't like the idea that it just grows wheels. I think that's super weird. I get that that's kind of the point, and that's what's ridden in the Paldea region, everything like that. It evolved to serve humans. I get that. I get that. And believe me, its shed skin ability, everything like that is huge for competitive battling. Just very middle of the road for me. I'll give him a C plus. Next up, we have Orthworm, which again, just so much wasted potential. It's a single stage Pokemon. It's essentially just a giant worm with little arms around his torso. I don't love him. I don't hate him. I kind of like his stupid little face that he has. I kind of wish he had an evolution or two that really fleshed out that line and everything. Overall, just a C minus. Next, we have Glimmet, which is a pretty cool Pokemon overall. Its kind of design is a little weird. Not my favorite of all time, if I'm to be honest with you guys. But, you know, it's a neat little Pokemon, and it's a unique design. I'm going to have to go with B minus. Next up, we have his evolution, Glamora. Now, Glamora is super cool in the fact that it kind of pretends to be a flower when really it's just pure poison crystals. I think that's super cool. I love its design. I love its toxic debris ability, everything like that. Not one of my favorite Pokemon, but definitely I see where they got a lot of cool ideas with it. I'm going to have to go with a B+. So now we're on to Greavard, which is the ghost dog Pokemon that killed somebody in one of the first trailers, which is really dark. I really enjoy him. You know, I thought it had something to do with Litwick at first, just because of the candle on his head. But overall, pretty cool design. I don't think I'm crazy about it, but I do like its, you know, encounter mechanic that you kind of see him hidden under the ground and he pops up to attack you. Overall, I'm going to have to give him a B+. Next up, we have Houndstone. Now, Houndstone is much better in my opinion. It actually looks like a zombie dog, and the fact that it has a headstone on top of it is super cool. Overall, I love its design a lot more than Greavard's, and I think it's a great evolution. And yeah, overall, I'll have to give him an A-. Next up, we have Flamigo. F tier. I'm sorry, F. Honestly, F-. It might be my only F- of this entire thing. It's just a flamingo with weird eyes. And I know that it nodded its neck to stop from throwing up all its... I don't care. It's stupid. I know a lot of people use it for speed runs because of its typing and power. I don't care. I hate it. It's just a normal bird. It doesn't evolve. It doesn't do anything. It might as well just be on a National Geographic, documentary. So yeah, F-. Let's please move on. Next up, we have Citadel. Now, Citadel is one of my favorites from this generation. A cool little land whale. He looks super cute. You could tell that there's a lot of potential for an evolution there. Overall, pretty cool. I love the fact that they are still really big, even though they're quote unquote toddlers. Overall, A-. Now, gonna have to whip out the S card again for its evolution Titan, one of my favorites from this generation. I haven't gotten the chance to use it too often. I am going to make it one of my ice raiders here for any raids that ice is super effective on, just because I love the design so much. I think it's a great Pokemon overall. The 170 health stat does not hurt either, and its shiny form is one of the few shinies that I actively really want to get. I think it looking like an orca is just incredible. And as soon as I get one, that's when I'm going to start training it and, raid with it and everything. Again, S tier Pokemon. Loves the Titan. Would have loved even more if there was a third evolution, but I get it. Next up, we have Veluza. This is really unremarkable. Kind of looks cool, but again, a single stage Pokemon that's just kind of there. Not remarkable in any sense other than it's just kind of, I don't know, it cuts itself into little sushi pieces as one of its abilities. I'll have to go with a C+ for Veluza. Next up, we have Dondozo, and I really like the mechanic with Tatsugiri. I like his design. I love that he's massive, and encountering him in the wild is super cool. But overall, just not one of my favorite Pokemon. I'm going to have to give him a B- here. Again, he gets some points for being, super huge and kind of a cool design. Just, I don't know, feels like he was strictly a gimmick Pokemon with Tatsugiri, which brings us to his counterpart, Tatsugiri. I'm sorry, guys. D minus. I really just hate Tatsugiri. I get that it's a whole gimmick with Dondozo and it's super cool for competitive scene. I've already watched some of the VGCs where they use this, strategy and everything. I get it. I get it. But just know it's a little tiny dragon sushi thing and it's just unremarkable. Not that powerful. I'm sorry. I don't like it. D minus. Next up, we have, again, one of my favorites from this generation, another S tier with Annihilate. Basically, he took an already good Pokemon from Generation 1 and just ramped it up to 11. Obviously, he gets so angry, he physically dies, becomes a ghost, and gets even more powerful. And is now a fighting ghost, which is a great type combination. He looks awesome. His evolution method is awesome. I just love having him on my team. Again, S tier, one of my favorites from this generation. Cannot wait to use him going forward. Next up, we have Clodsire, who kind of goes along with Paldean Wooper. Now, in this list I'm looking at, they don't have Paldean Wooper, but just as an aside, in case he isn't on here later, I really enjoyed Paldean Wooper. I think he's super cool with his little bone-like gills on the side. I think it's a great regional form for Wooper, who I already kind of liked design-wise, but him evolving into a completely different Pokemon and Clodsire, I love Clodsire. He's a little bulbous boy. He got the little spines that come out of his back that kind of make him look a little more aggressive. He has that big dumb face that Quagsire, brought to the series decades ago. Overall, I just think it's a great evolution and a great regional form of Quagsire. I'm going to have to give him an A+ rating. Next up, we have Farigiraf, which I think is a much needed evolution for Girafarig. I'm so glad that they're giving older Pokemon evolutions now, making them a little more viable, eking out their designs a little more. Overall, not my favorite. Probably won't use one anytime soon, but still a really cool Pokemon. We'll go with B+. Next up, we have the Dunsparce, which is the evolution form of Dunsparce. I know a lot of people hate him and they wanted some mythical dragon to come out of, little pathetic Dunsparce, but I think this is so much more on brand, right? It's just as pathetic, but just a little bit more of him, which is incredible. And the fact that he could go into a 3-segment form and just be, 3 times as pathetic is just awesome. I love it, and I think it's so on brand. I think he's honestly a meme at this point. I'm not going to dock him points for being pathetic because that's kind of his point. So just for that fact alone, I'm going to have to give him an A rating just because, again, it just fits so well, and it kind of becomes more of a niche thing for Dunsparce being just that lovable loser. Next up, we have another S tier here with King Gambit. I loved the Bisharp line initially, and I absolutely love the fact that they gave him another evolution. His evolution method is super cool and innovative, and the fact that his design is just based on a samurai and everything like that, and you encounter his pre-evolutions in a bamboo forest for the most part. It's so cool. I cannot stress enough how much I love King Gambit. Not enough to give him an S+, right? I just want to give that to one Pokemon this generation, but definitely a strong S tier. Maybe in a different generation without Ceruledge, he gets S+. Going to be one of my favorites going forward throughout the years. So now we reach the Paradox Pokemon, which let me just say how much I love the idea of Paradox Pokemon, right? We have ancient Pokemon and future Pokemon brought in through a time machine. I really, really, really hope they elaborate a lot more on this, and I'll probably make a video discussing that in the future, but just know I really love these ideas. Even when the designs themselves don't quite hit home, I still love the idea so much. This is so cool. Please, Game Freak, give us more. So we'll start out with Great Tusk. Now, Great Tusk is an ancient version of Donphan, and I really love it. It is Donphan. You can clearly tell it's Donphan, but it's just spiced up a little bit. And the ground and fighting type is awesome. Again, these hugely elevated stats on all these guys are super cool too. Overall, I'll give him an A rating. Now, next up, we have Screamtail. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Jigglypuff, so that is going to hurt the score here, because it is basically just Jigglypuff with a couple extra edges and frills on him. But overall, it is an improvement on Jigglypuff. I will give him that. So I'm just going to have to give him a C-. Next up, we have Brute Bonnet. Now, Brute Bonnet is a really cool step in the direction for Amoonguss. He has a little, poison curtain, it looks like, or grass curtain down in front of his face now. He has a little dinosaur tail. It even says in, I forget if it's the Pokedex or in the Scarlet book, that it's kind of the mixture of a dinosaur and a mushroom. So it kind of looks really ancient, and they stepped it up as opposed to giving it just, a couple spikes here and there. They added actual parts and kind of melded it with, in this case, a dinosaur. So gave him 4 feet and a big tail and stuff like that. I really love the idea, and I'm super excited to use him on a couple teams of mine. Next up, we have Fluttermane, which Mischievous, very middle of the road for me. Fluttermane literally just looks the same with slightly longer appendages and kind of barbaric eyes, if you want to call them that. Overall, just not enthused with the design. I'm going to have to give it a D tier. Although the typing is super cracked, and I'm probably going to use it for raids a decent amount because it is crazy. But again, just the the overall design, we're going D for Fluttermane. Next up, we have Slitherwing, which I loved Volcarona back in the day. I actually thought he was a legendary when I was younger, when the games first came out, because he just looked so awesome. And Slitherwing, again, an incredible version of him as well, kind of walking on land. He stands up and fights. He definitely looks a little more like a primal insect would. He's massive, which is, well, not massive, but pretty big, which is super cool. Overall, I'm going to have to give him an A+ rating. Now, next up, we have Sandy Shocks, and I want to love it. I just don't think I do. Overall, it's got some elements that I like, but it's got some elements that I don't really like. The idea of an ancient, magneton is kind of weird to me. But overall, I don't hate him. We'll give him a B- tier. And that brings us to the future Pokemon with Iron Treads. Now, Iron Treads is awesome. I actually like him over the Primal Donphan, in this case, Great Tusk. I think he's super cool. He's robotic. He got the robotic face. He rolls up into a perfect circle with his kind of robotic wheels. I love the LEDs on the treads. I know a lot of people hate him because he's just like a little ball and everything, and they maybe oversimplified some of the design, but me, myself, I love it. And next up, we have Iron Bundle, which the world didn't need, but we got anyways. It's a robotic Delibird. I love him just because he's so stupid, but I really should hate him. We're just going to give him a B- and accept the fact that he's just too stupid to hate. So now we are on to Iron Hands, which gets another S rank from me. I know that's starting to give these out like candy, but Iron Hands is one of my favorite Pokemon. Obviously, he is absolutely cracked in terms of stats for raids and stuff. And I just kind of love Hariyama in general, but the fighting electric style, the big LEDs, and how he kind of brings his hands to his head on those little magnets you see there to rest when he's sleeping, and just kind of floats them otherwise. I just love so much of the design elements of him. It looks like a proper robotic, futuristic Hariyama. Just incredible. Again, S tier, one of my favorite futuristic Pokemon. Next up, we have Iron Jugulus, and he's cool. I really do love the LED effect that you can tell that they're like an LED screen and he's a robot version of a Hydreigon. I really do enjoy Hydreigon, so by default, I love Iron Jugulus, and I do think they futurized him really well. I'm going to have to go with an A rank for him. And that brings us to Iron Moth, which again is a Volcarona version. They gave him a past and a future version in this game, and this is his future version. The little wings that float around him kind of act like solar panels, and I love the animation that they do, especially when he goes to sleep. Again, they kind of like retract exactly like you see solar panels move, and I just think it's a great design, great animations that they poured into him, and just makes an already cool Pokemon even cooler. A+ for Iron Moth. And next we got Iron Thorns, which is just a futuristic Mechagodzilla version of Tyranitar, which was already great. Again, A+ for Iron Thorns. I think they could have done a little bit more to him. He's maybe a little too plain, but overall just such a cool Pokemon. And I love the fact that, all of these Pokemon, their shiny versions, are just kind of bare metal instead of painted metal, like some of them are. So he gets big points for that. Again, I love Tyranitar, so by default, I'll love Iron Thorns as well. I just think they could have done a little bit more to him and he would have been S tier. Next up, we have the pseudo-legendary of this generation with Frigibax. He's kind of ugly, and I really don't like the design, if I'm to be honest. I love what he eventually gets to, but as a first evolution, he's just really ugly and weird looking, and I'm not sure he fits in with the rest of them, honestly. I'm going to have to give him a D+. And his next evolution, Artabax, now that finally looks like a little dragon, Godzilla ice monster thing. Really like the designs, love him as a middle evolution. I think he's super cool. I couldn't wait to get this Pokemon, since they are pretty rare. I'm going to have to give him an A-. Unfortunately, he evolves into Baxcalibur, which had so much potential. I think it could have been the coolest Pokemon ever. But they just dropped the ball. The design is really weird. It's another dragon where the head is just a completely different color than the rest of his body. His animation for his signature move is just literally a joke. I want to love him so much, and I do love the fact that he's Dragon Ice. I love the fact that he is a pseudo-legend, so that gets some major points. I love it's an Ice Godzilla with, a big blade on his back. But unfortunately, I'm going to have to give him a B-. He could have been easily an S tier if they had done it correctly, but they didn't, so C- he gets, or B-. Whatever I said the first time. Next up, we have everybody's favorite chess Pokemon. They had to obviously include a quote-unquote mimic, from all of the RPG lore here with Gimmighoul. He hides in a little chest. You can also find him throughout the world. He is a major gimmick and kind of open world mechanic in Pokemon. I love that they turned a Pokemon himself into one of the quote-unquote RPG stereotypes, right? Open world stereotypes where you have to go and collect things around the world, things hidden. And they turned it into a Pokemon. So you're not just finding a feather here around the world that you have to collect. You're actually finding pieces of a Pokemon to evolve him. And I love the fact that he respawns on top of the different towers and stuff like that. Really cool design. I love how they implemented him into the game. The fact that he's in a chest is super cool. His actual design, I'm not too crazy about. I don't love it. I don't hate it. But just because of everything he brings to the game, we will give him a B+. His evolution is just the mozzarella stick man. I'm sorry to say, if you've ever seen the string cheese mascot, that's him. It's like if the string cheese mascot and Silver Surfer had a baby and then painted themselves gold for a Steelers tailgate or something like that. This is what you have, the Goldango. I really love his evolution method. I like the fact he surfs around on a coin surfboard. Super cool, but overall just kind of a weird design. And for being number 1000 in the Pokedex, I kind of expected a little bit more, but they tried their hardest. They made you collect, 1,000 coins to get him. So overall, not too great, not too bad. I think a lot of wasted potential, but we'll still give him a B+. Now on to the legendaries for the region. We have Wo-Chien, which is just basically a mythical little snail guy. Not crazy on the design as far as a legendary goes. I think this could have just been a normal Pokemon, but on design alone and just kind of the overall, reasoning behind him and everything like that, I will give him a B tier. Chen Pao, I like a little bit more. Again, just feels like a normal Pokemon, not really a legendary, I hate to say, but I do love the design. I love the little swords sticking out of him and kind of what they represent in his design and everything. And Dark Ice is a cool typing. I'll give him an A-. Ting Lu, I'm sorry, I don't like. It's a weird amorphous blob of a elk or a moose or something with earth tones and sedimentary rock textures, and then it has a bowl on its head. I'm sure there's some kind of history behind it or mythology that I'm missing here. I just do not like it. I'm sorry, especially for a legendary. D-. And next up we have Chi Yu. I love him. He's a little goldfish guy with little jade eyeballs. I don't really buy into the fact that he's, again, a legendary, but none of these really fit the bill for me, legendary-wise. But he is a cool little guy. I love his design. I love his typing and everything like that. And he is apparently pretty powerful, so I'm going to still have to give him good marks. I'll give him an A-. Next up, we have another one of my favorites here. It's not going to quite get an S tier, but we'll give an A plus to Roaring Moon, which is essentially a primal form or an ancient form of Mega Salamence. So I love that they did a Mega Pokemon that they kind of turned into an ancient Pokemon as well. So super cool, super powerful looking. One of the great late stage Pokemon. One of my favorites from this generation. We will give him an A plus. Then for our last normal Pokemon, we have Iron Valiant. And again, a futuristic version, kind of a combination. So this is our first combination Pokemon, a combination of Gallade and Gardevoir, and I think some of their Mega forms as well. And it's just a super cool, like, space Pokemon with blades that it has. It kind of creates like a scepter. It's just so cool. I love it so much. It is an S tier for me, and its shiny form is even cooler. In fact, it's just pure metal. Just such a cool design. I really love what they've done with these future Pokemon. Again, Game Freak, if you're listening, make more, please. So that gets another S tier. And finally, we'll wrap up with Koraidon and Miraidon. Koraidon gets, unfortunately, a B minus tier. I definitely like all of its frills and kind of ancient, tribal, kind of markings and stuff like that. Again, I don't love the fact that it has wheels on it. I don't like the fact that any of these, versions have wheels on them. But overall, it's just my least favorite of the two legendaries. It's not bad, and it's definitely cool, and I'll be excited to use mine. The fighting and dragon type is really cool as well, but just I can't bring myself to like it that much. So and next up we have Miraidon, who I will give an A rank to. I think it could have been so much cooler. Again, I'm not a huge fan of the wheels. I get that it kind of had to be that for the movement mechanic in this game, but just kind of turned me off to the whole idea. But his battle form is super cool. I love his LED eyes and the electric sparking everywhere and the jet engines. Super cool. I think I would give him an A ranking overall, maybe A plus on a good day. A super cool Pokemon, and one that I am happy actually made me pick the Pokemon Violet version. So that about wraps it up, guys. Sorry, that has been quite a long and lengthy video here, but I wanted to give my honest thoughts on each Pokemon. As always, I can always do deeper dives later on individuals and stuff like that, but if you've stuck around this long, make sure to leave a like, and definitely subscribe, like I said, if you want more Pokemon content. I will be making more here in the coming weeks. We also do some fun Call of Duty commentaries and gameplay and stuff like that on this channel as well, so make sure to check all of those out if that is more down your alley as well. So until next time, guys, this has been Crunchy Frog. You have a good one. Peace.